In the mid-12th century, the lands of the Levant were awash in blood. Crusader states carved from conquest stood tense against the battered remains of Muslim unity. Amid this chaos, in the city of Tikrit, a child was born who would one day be called the most chivalrous enemy by his Christian foes. His name, Yusuf ibn Ayyub, but history remembers him as Saladin. Born in 1137 or 1138 into a Kurdish family, Saladin's early life was marked not by war, but by scholarship. His father, Ayyub, and uncle Shirkuh were generals serving the powerful Zengid dynasty under Nur ad-Din of Syria. Saladin was raised in a household of discipline and devotion, educated in theology, science, and the art of war. His world was shaped not by conquest, but by a deepening faith in Islam. As Saladin matured, the influence of Nur ad-Din, the ruler of Aleppo and Damascus, became central. Nur ad-Din aspired to unify the Muslim world under Sunni Islam and push back the Crusaders. Saladin's loyalty to him was more than political. It was ideological. To unite the Ummah, Nur ad-Din once said, is not only a right, it is a divine obligation. In 1164, Saladin followed his uncle Shirkuh to Egypt on a mission for Nur ad-Din. Egypt, then under the decaying Fatimid Caliphate, was a treasure waiting to be claimed. Shirkuh seized power after years of intrigue and battle, but upon his death in 1169, the title of vizier unexpectedly fell to the young Saladin. Reluctant but dutiful, he accepted, unaware that history's gaze had fixed on him. As vizier of Egypt, Saladin began a slow and steady transformation. While outwardly serving the Fatimid Caliph, he quietly realigned the state with Sunni Islam and Nur ad-Din's authority. In 1171, the Fatimid dynasty ended without bloodshed. Saladin prayed the Friday sermon in the name of the Abbasid Caliph, an act that sealed Sunni control over Egypt and marked the beginning of a new Muslim unity. Nur ad-Din died in 1174, and the fragile unity of his territories began to fracture. Saladin, now in control of Egypt, moved swiftly. Though still young, he began campaigns to take Syria, not for his own gain, but to restore the cause of unity Nur ad-Din had once championed. This ambition was not without resistance, but Saladin remained steadfast. By 1176, Saladin had brought Damascus under his control. Aleppo and other Syrian cities would follow, sometimes through diplomacy, sometimes through siege. From these victories rose the Ayyubid dynasty, a new Islamic empire forged not merely through conquest, but through the ideals of justice and service to Islam. He famously said, "I have become so great as I am because I have won men's hearts by gentleness and kindness." Saladin's reputation grew not only through military brilliance, but through his unmatched sense of honor. He refused to kill prisoners, allowed Christian pilgrims to visit holy sites, and punished his soldiers for looting. His contemporaries, both Muslim and Christian, marveled at his integrity. The chronicler Ernul wrote, "He was a true knight without fear or blame." By 1187, Saladin had unified Egypt, Syria, and parts of Mesopotamia. His next aim? Jerusalem. The kingdom of Jerusalem had grown overconfident, especially under the reckless Reynald of Chatillon, who broke truces and raided Muslim caravans. Saladin had warned him, "When God delivers him into my hands, I shall kill him." That moment would come sooner than Reynald expected. On July 4, 1187, near the Horns of Hattin, Saladin led his forces in a decisive confrontation against the Crusaders. Surrounded, dehydrated, and demoralized, the Crusader army was annihilated. King Guy of Jerusalem was captured. Reynald, brought before Saladin, was executed personally, fulfilling Saladin's vow. The rest were treated with mercy. The battle shattered Crusader strength. After Hattin, the road to Jerusalem lay open. One by one, Crusader fortresses fell to Saladin's forces. Panic spread among the Latin Christians, while Muslim hopes soared. Yet Saladin advanced not with vengeance, but with purpose. His eyes were not on plunder, but on a promise, to return the holy city to Islam with justice, not bloodshed. In September 1187, Saladin's army encircled Jerusalem. Unlike the Crusader siege in 1099, which ended in massacre, Saladin offered terms of surrender. After days of resistance, Balian of Ibelin negotiated with the Sultan. In exchange for ransom, the citizens would be spared. On October 2, 1187, the city surrendered. No churches were desecrated, no blood was spilled. History would call it one of the most merciful conquests of its time. Saladin entered Jerusalem humbly. He ordered the Christian cross removed from the Dome of the Rock and restored Islamic practices to the city. Yet, he allowed Christian worship to continue. European pilgrims were even granted passage to the city. One chronicler wrote, "He who had taken the city in the name of Islam preserved it in the name of humanity." Europe, stunned by the loss of Jerusalem, rallied for vengeance. Pope Gregory VIII launched the Third Crusade. Among the warriors was King Richard III of England, Richard the Lionheart, one of history's most formidable Crusader kings. The clash between Saladin and Richard would become legendary, a duel of two titans with mutual respect. Richard landed in the Holy Land in 1191 and besieged the port city of Acre. Saladin, committed to resisting the Crusaders, attempted several times to lift the siege. After nearly 2 years, the city fell. Richard then ordered the execution of 2,700 Muslim prisoners, an act that deeply shocked Saladin, but did not provoke him into brutality in response. Though enemies, Saladin and Richard communicated frequently, often through emissaries. Saladin once sent Richard fresh horses when the English kings had died. When Richard fell ill, Saladin sent him fruit and snow to cool his fever. Their rivalry was defined not by hatred, but by shared codes of knightly virtue. "We are both men of honor," Richard reportedly said. From 1191 to 1192, the two armies clashed repeatedly at Arsuf, Jaffa, and along the coastal plains. Saladin fought bravely, often leading from the front, but he struggled to match the Crusaders' naval resupply advantage. Jerusalem remained untouched. Richard knew he could not hold it. In battle and in negotiation, both men tested each other's will. In September 1192, the Treaty of Ramla was signed. Jerusalem would remain under Muslim control, but Christian pilgrims could freely visit the city. Coastal cities from Jaffa to Tyre would stay in Crusader hands. Though neither side achieved total victory, both leaders had won something greater: peace, however fragile. Saladin returned to Damascus in 1193 to find his realm exhausted by war. His treasury was nearly empty. He had given away much of his wealth in charity and to his soldiers. He owned only 1 gold coin and 40 pieces of silver at his death. "There is not enough to bury him," his attendants said, astonished. Saladin died on March 4, 1193, at the age of 55. His funeral was simple. His tomb lies in Damascus, bearing the inscription, "O God, he was the servant of your faith and the warrior of your path. Forgive him, and be merciful to him." He left no palace, no hoard of treasure, only a legacy of honor, unity, and restraint. Even among his enemies, Saladin was mourned. Chroniclers in Europe praised his justice and mercy. The 13th-century historian Baha ad-Din, who knew him personally, wrote, He was the most gracious and kind-hearted man I ever knew. Dante Alighieri, centuries later, placed him in the first circle of hell in the Divine Comedy, reserved for virtuous non-Christians. Over time, Saladin became a symbol, not just for Muslims, but for the world. In the Arab world, he was remembered as the unifier of Islam. In the West, as a noble adversary, statues of Saladin stand not only in Cairo and Damascus, but also in Berlin and Paris. He remains one of few figures celebrated by all sides of a conflict. Saladin's military tactics, light cavalry maneuvering, psychological warfare, supply line sabotage, are studied in military academies. Yet his greatest contribution may lie in statecraft. He united a fragmented Muslim world not through tyranny, but through patience, diplomacy, and example. He once said, "Nothing hurts me more than seeing Muslims divided." Unlike many conquerors, Saladin was not driven by greed. He lived simply, avoided luxury, and prayed consistently. He restored mosques, built schools, and funded hospitals. For him, war was not glory, but a burden of duty. "It is not by blood that one wins paradise," he said, "but by justice and mercy." In today's divided world, Saladin's life offers reflection. A Muslim leader who respected Christian lives, a warrior who despised unnecessary violence, a ruler who preferred peace over conquest. His example challenges stereotypes and calls for principled leadership that transcends faith and borders. Though centuries have passed, the name Saladin still echoes across cultures. He was a lion not only in the desert, but in the shadowy politics of his age, facing betrayal, ambition, and religious extremism. He did not conquer the world, but he conquered the hearts of many within it. In a world that continues to wrestle with war, division, and ideology, Saladin's story endures, not because he won every battle, but because he fought with principle. He showed that faith and tolerance could live side by side, even in the crucible of holy war. Let us end with his words, spoken in the final years of his life. "I praise God for having allowed me to live long enough to recover Jerusalem. My cause was not for myself, but for my faith. My sword was never drawn, but in service of justice." Saladin stood at the crossroads of empires, cultures, and belief systems. He was a man of his time, but acted as if he belonged to a better one. He remains a timeless figure, a warrior, a ruler, a servant of faith, and a beacon of dignity in the darkest of wars. In the annals of history, few names shine as brightly across enemy lines. Saladin's life reminds us that power can be wielded with restraint, and faith with compassion. He was the lion of the desert. But more than that, he was a shadow of what humanity could be at its best, even in the heart of war.